New ad by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis highlighting fed-up New Yorkers who have fled to the Sunshine State, encouraging viewers to vote free, be free. Joining me now, daughter-in-law to former President Donald Trump and a Fox Business contributor, Lara Trump. Lara, I'm smiling watching that video because it's like, hey, oh, I love Florida. It's all people who are clearly from the Northeast. But it really speaks to the freedoms that people are allowed to enjoy in Florida.
Amen to that, Dagan. And it's amazing. And by the way, I am in Florida right now. I moved to Florida. I'm one of those New Yorkers that made the move down here. And it is, I think, appropriate for Ron DeSantis to use this in some sort of a campaign ad for himself to promote himself, because the reason so many people actually moved to this state is because of Ron DeSantis, because of the way he handled COVID, because of the way this state was allowed to remain free and open. Businesses were allowed to flourish. Kids remained in school. They weren't forced to be masked. People had choices down here. And I think often about, would I even have moved here, moved my family here, if the Democrat, Andrew Gillum, don't forget, who ran against Ron DeSantis in 2018, had won in the state of Florida? The answer is probably not. He was a Democratic socialist, and he probably would have run this state much like we saw New York run, California run. And man, it's made all the difference to have a governor like Ron DeSantis. He's the reason I'm here, and so many other people from the Northeast have flocked down to Florida. So kudos to Ron DeSantis. We're very happy.
The danger is that you get people who bring their politics with them. And their people are moving down from deep blue states. Maybe they didn't vote Democrat in the Northeast, but that is the danger. Because Florida was running, well, purple for, it was going more and more blue. It certainly was purple. It was a swing state. So how do you make sure, how does the Republican Party make sure that these individuals keep that they vote for what drove them to Florida in the first place?
Well, I think it's up to us as Republicans to remind them, why did you leave states like New York? Obviously, the COVID policies were just so egregious there, but you couple that with the high taxes in the state, with the high crime, especially in places like New York City. All the major metropolitan areas, unfortunately, all run by Democrats around the country, have seen all of this happen. So I think it's up to us. Look, campaign ads for Republicans going into the midterms. We're talking about governor's races all across the country. We need to remind people why they moved to red states, and let's keep them red, Dagan, to your point, because do not bring your Democrat policies down to a beautiful red state like Florida and try to ruin it. In my town where I live, we just had a mayoral runoff actually on Tuesday, and I'm happy to say the Republican won down here. But it was closer than many of us wanted. So I think you're right. I think it's something we have to watch out for, and it's something that certainly the Republican Party is paying very close attention to.
I'll share a story with you that I haven't said on the air. I was at a beauty parlor, as we say in the South, but it was up here in New York City, and there was a woman, an older woman, loudly talking about how much she hated Ron DeSantis. So she lives in Florida, but she had flown to New York, apparently just to get her hair done. So she was rich. And she was complaining about Ron DeSantis trying to prevent mask mandates in schools and withholding funding, or threatening to withhold funding for schools that imposed mask mandates, and how that was so awful. And I whipped around and went, children should not be wearing masks. Like that. And she's like, I think probably yelled so loud her eyes started to water. But it's that kind of elitism. I'm like, you don't have kids in school, and your grandkids are probably in private school, and they shouldn't be wearing masks anyway.
Right. Yeah, and she wouldn't be living or have her second home in Florida, Dagan, if it weren't for the great taxes down here, for the freedoms that she gets to enjoy down here. But it is something that unfortunately exists, and it's mind-boggling. You would think that if you move to a place where things are working well, you would say, maybe it's because of the leadership in this area, in the state, in the city, wherever you are. Unfortunately, you do have people who are totally brainwashed But we just have to hope that they don't come out in November in droves and we get all the Republicans out there voting for what they know is right and free.
Before we go, I want to point out this article that caught my attention. It's in the Federalist. The Federalist writing a piece that said, while everyone else panicked 2 years ago, the Federalist was right about lockdowns doing more harm than good. And I recall here in New York City, there was a public park adjacent to where I live that they had wrapped the children's playground and basketball court in a 12-foot high chain link fence to prevent people from going in a park. Just a final word on what we've hopefully learned about lockdowns, Lara.
Yeah, well, they obviously did not do what they intended to do. It actually extended out the pandemic, according to many experts now. And we could have seen fewer people probably die from COVID if it had gotten over quicker. You think about the people who missed, major medical situations like cancers and really deadly things that because they didn't go to the doctor. Then you couple that with the fact that we were isolated. People weren't allowed to be with their friends and family. Terrible all around. Let's never do it again. I hope we learned our lesson.
Thank you, Lara, and the kids, the damage done to our children. Lara Trump, thank you. We'll be right back.